I'm back and let's write some more neat code today. So today let's solve the problem, convert an array into a 2D array with conditions. So the idea is we're given an input array of nums which can contain duplicate values, but we need to create a two-dimensional array from all of these numbers. And basically the restriction is that every row in the 2D array has to have unique integers, meaning there can't be any duplicates. We have to do that while minimizing the number of rows. And I think the reason why they even say this is because the easiest thing that we could do if this restriction didn't exist is just put every single number in its own row, because that would guarantee that there aren't any duplicates in any of the rows. But they want us to minimize the number of rows. So basically, we will be building a 2D matrix and we'll only be adding a new row if we have to. So one thing that you might notice about a problem like this one is that the number of rows that we're going to have is going to be bounded by the number of copies the most frequent number is. Let's say the most frequent number is 10 and there are, let's say, 4 copies of 10, then we're going to end up having 4 rows because we have to put one of the copies of 10 in each different row. Suppose we're iterating over this input array. How would we know if we have found a duplicate integer? Well, we'd have to keep track of it, and probably the best way to do that would be using some kind of hash data structure, either a hash set or a hash map. Then we would know, okay, like this is a 1 and we've seen 1 before. But knowing that we've seen a number before actually isn't enough. It would be good if we actually had a hash map where we could count the number of times that we've seen a number before. For example, if I've seen 1 3 times and now it's the 4th time I'm seeing it, that is significant because that means we put each of these ones in its own row. So we had 3 rows at least for these 3 ones, but now we see a 4th one. So we have to either create a 4th row or just insert the 1 in the 4th row if it already exists. And you might kind of notice a pattern with this. This is the 0th row, this is the 1st row, this is the 2nd row, and this is the 3rd row. If this is the 4th time we're seeing this number, then we're going to put it in the 4th minus 1 row. Or if we've already seen this number 3 times, as you can see over here, then we're going to put the next copy in the 3rd row. And of course, if we hadn't seen that value at all before, if we'd only seen it, like this is the first time we're seeing a 1, we'd put it in the 0th row. So that's pretty much the idea of solving this problem. What we're going to do is we're going to iterate over the input array. We're going to count the number of times we've seen each number. So here we see 1. This is the first time that we're seeing it. So we add it to the 1st row. Now we see a 3. It's the first time that we're seeing it. So we add it to the 1st row. 4, same thing, add it to the 1st row. Now we see 1 for the 2nd time, and we know that because we're counting it in our hash map. So then we add it to a new row that we have to create, and we can set the count now to 2. Sorry about the handwriting. Now we see 2 for the first time, so we can just add it to the 1st row and set its count to 1. And we see 3 for the 2nd time, so we have to put 3 here. We'll set its count to 2 as well. And now we see 1 for the 3rd time, so we do have to create a 3rd row for 1. So here you can see solving it that way, we get the same thing that they did in the output. So this is going to be our 2D matrix. Notice that every row doesn't have to be the same length. So it's not actually a matrix, it's a 2D array. Sorry about that. In terms of time complexity, clearly we only have to iterate over the input once. For memory complexity, we are technically building the 2D array, but even if that doesn't count, we do have a hash map, which can be, in the worst case, the size of the input array. So time and memory complexity is going to be big O of n, where n is the size of the input array. Now let's code this up. So I'm going to create a hash map. I'm going to call it a default dict in Python, and the default value is going to be an integer. So this will basically, like if we haven't inserted a key yet into this, like 1, for example, the value of this will still be considered 0. So even if we haven't inserted a key, we're not going to get a key doesn't exist error. We will get 0 as the default value. I'm also going to declare the result, which is going to be the 2D matrix that we ultimately end up returning. And before we can return it, we have to build it. So let's go through every number in the input array. We don't care about the index. We just want the number itself. Now, let's figure out what is the row that we want to insert this number into. So I'm going to say for our hash map, let's get how many times we've seen this number before. Initially, it's definitely going to be 0. So that would mean we insert it into the 0th row, but we haven't even added the 0th row yet. So what we would do here is check if the length of result is equal to the row. That means we're going to get an index out of bounds error. If we try to do result of row, we're going to get index out of bounds. So what we do is to result, we append this empty row. This is the new row that we're adding. Now we can say result at index row, let's append the current number that we just saw. We're adding this number to this row. And before we forget, we should probably increment the count of the number before this loop iteration is finished. So let's do that. So this actually is the entire code. Notice we only insert a row if it doesn't already exist. Otherwise, we just append the current number to the relevant row. The row comes from how many times we've already seen that number before, because we don't ever want any duplicates in the same row. Now let's just run this to make sure that it works. As you can see on the left, yes, it does. It's pretty efficient, even though the runtime is pretty random on Leetcode. If you found this helpful, please like and subscribe. If you're preparing for coding interviews, check out neetcode.io.
Chill, bro. Oh, dang. The door hit me in the head. Bro, you too?
Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. I just failed my coding interview. Damn, I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I've actually failed quite a few, I guess not quite a few interviews, because to be honest, I wasn't even given a lot of interviews, but I'll like tell you guys my failure interview stories. So I did not do a ton of interviews. The main ones I did were pretty much back in college, because like I told you guys, after I graduated, I was unemployed, could not get interviews for the life of me. It was like 2020. Nobody was really hiring back then. It was like the pandemic, the beginning of the pandemic. So the only interview I got was like the Google one. And I did pass that one, as you guys probably know. But the only other interviews I did were in college. And the ones I failed were Microsoft. My Microsoft interview, you would not believe it. It was a phone interview. I only got to the phone interview. And I was super try-harding Leetcode. I was like, there's no way I'm going to fail this interview. It's supposed to be a 30-minute phone call. They didn't even give me a lot of information about it. The coding question was not even a coding question, meaning like I didn't have to like code anything up. It was just a phone interview. The guy gave me a coding problem and I just had to like talk through it. And the problem was pretty much this, the tiny URL problem. It was more or less that problem. I think I had already done this Leetcode problem before. I was like, okay, I got this. I pretty much told him the solution to the problem immediately. I don't know if he thought I was cheating or what, but the dude was super rude, by the way. And the whole time he was just saying, in the interest of time, we have to like do this quickly or blah, 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 right? He was like really rushing me. It was a 30-minute call. It ended in 15 minutes. I thought I answered it perfectly, given that I knew the problem, not because I'm smart, just because I had done it before. And then I got rejected. That was kind of dumb. So, you know, one rejection there. Microsoft, that sucked because I would have taken that offer. The other offer I got was Amazon, and I probably would have taken Microsoft over Amazon, but okay, you live with that one. There's another company you guys probably haven't heard of that I interviewed for in college. It's called Viva Systems. They're not like a super well-known company, but they're a pretty like decent, I'd consider them a tech company. They're in Silicon Valley. It's a relatively big company, 27 billion or whatever, so pretty big company. They're like a healthcare CRM company. This one, I did very, very well in the interview. I actually liked their interview process. It wasn't even like Leetcode style interviews, or at least it wasn't like super hard. It was like very reasonable questions. Then I pretty much got past the technical round. I had a round with either a recruiter or like some like non-technical person, right? And this guy baited me very hard. Like he tricked me. This was like a very valuable lesson though that I learned. And to be fair, I was pretty dumb. He asked me, we're excited to have you get this far in the process, by the way. He was talking like he wanted to give me a offer, pretty much talking in that way, like, okay, we're getting close to giving you an offer, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I just want to know where you're at currently in the interview process. What other companies are you interviewing with and stuff like that? I didn't really know why he was asking me that. And I was like, okay, I'm interviewing with a couple other companies. I'm interviewing with Amazon. And he's like, okay, what would your first choice be for company among companies you're interviewing with? Who would you most prefer to join? You can imagine how I answered this question. How would you guys answer that question if someone asked you, what do you think is the correct answer? Obviously, what he wanted to hear was, I'm really excited to join Viva. But I told him probably Amazon, just because I already live in Seattle. I was very dumb and naive. I was just being honest. And that's when I learned people that you're talking to, no matter how nice they come off as, they're not your friend. A few hours after that call, I got an email saying, sorry, we're moving forward with somebody else. And I wasn't even mad. I was just like, you know, that guy outplayed me. He 4D chessed me, and I was just very, very dumb. You have to live with those, I think, because as long as you learn a lesson from it, I think you can live with that. Yeah, that was unfortunate. I think the only other company I interviewed for, at least in college, was Google. And I already made a video about how I failed that one.
Hey, yo, who's watching right now? Who's watching right now? I mean, F in the chat. That is actually funny as hell. Somebody's watching. You know. Oh, they left. Cool. 'Cause I love you. 5.7. No, I'm shy about my think it's time. I'm shy about my height. I think it's time. I'm 5'7". I'm sure about my height. She like me for my real life. She doesn't know the mathematics. Save my life. What's good?
Hello. Simon's dad called me a couple days ago because apparently dad called.